It's Sunday. That means it's story time. I hope you guys are excited to read chapter 7 with me today. Last week we left off being introduced to a new character, one of my favorites, who you will see a lot in this series. And today we're going to meet another fun character, and I don't want to give too many spoilers away, so we will get right to the reading really quickly this time. But I do want to say that I did get some wonderful ideas for our author flub number 1, our contest, and I will be announcing the winner of the contest at the end of the reading, so stay tuned till the end. And I'm just going to jump right in. I'm excited for this chapter. So we're chapter 7. Everybody get your books out if you're reading along with me. All right, chapter 7. Darkness had descended, but Sage wasn't ready to call it a night just yet. Matt was working, so she would be going home to an empty apartment if she did. That kind of alone time didn't mesh well with the day she'd had. Training with Devon had left her muscles tired, but she couldn't shake the stress left in the wake of being let go from her job. Marcy hadn't said the words, "You're fired," but the implication was there. Yet, that ambiguity just didn't add up. She kept replaying the scene over and over in her mind as she walked towards her neighborhood bar. Marcy had been all snarky and confident, looking for anything to discredit her, and then suddenly, after seeing her deformity, she'd changed her tune. It was the strangest thing, though not nearly as strange as hallucinating her boss as an actual troll, or the Green Goblin man back at A.S.S.E.T in Phoenix. And if she truly had been laid off, there would be no healthcare coverage for the shrink she clearly needed. They said tragedy often causes mental illness. At the very least, it would be that's number 2. At the very least, it would be a decent excuse for why she was losing her grip on reality. She was in the throes of a complete breakdown, and it was probably obvious to anyone who looked at her. Marcy had opted for the easy way to remove her from the office rather than deal with some crazy drama, the path of least resistance. Either way, Sage would have to deal with the fallout soon. She resigned herself to looking for a new job in the morning. After the brutal workout she'd endured, her stomach roared for food. Around the corner from her apartment complex sat a small English-style pub, the next best thing to going home. She'd been in there so often they knew her by name, and she decided to reward surviving the day with some sliders and ale. Scooting into a back corner booth, she waved at Julie, the waitress, and mouthed the words, "the usual." Some people hated to eat alone, but not Sage. Sitting back and watching the people around her was like a front row seat to her own personal soap opera. Their comings and goings were nearly as scripted as television. The daily drama of date nights, breakups, friendly drunks, and groups of people celebrating who knows what were always there. The faces might change occasionally, but alcohol and people always made for good entertainment. Sitting in the farthest corner was the perfect spot to see but not be seen. No one came back by her table unless it was Julie filling her drink and bringing her extra chips. Across the room, clinging to the bar like a crutch, sat a familiar barfly. Blatantly drunk, he flailed his arms as he pleaded with the bartender. Though she couldn't hear him, Sage put her own words to the movement of his lips. "Please, sir, may I have another?" she giggled. Julie arrived with food in hand. "Bad lip reading again?" "Can't help myself." She pointed to a couple 3 tables over. "Break up." Sage gave the guy a quick once-over. Dressed too nicely to be slumming it in a neighborhood bar, he had the look of a captain in the Air Force. She cleared her throat before delivering his words. "I have a confession to make. I'm not in the Army. I just like wearing uniforms." Julie snorted and took on the role of the woman arguing in tears. "I should have known better. There's no unlimited security patrol, is there?" "Nice." Sage narrowed her eyes and watched the man for an emotional cue to his next word. "Postal workers are an army of sorts." Julie nearly dropped the tray she was carrying in a fit of laughs. "I could play this game all night, but duty calls." She set down the food and turned to head back towards the kitchens. Sage giggled to herself, glancing at the fighting couple between bites of her mini burgers. Her stomach groaned with appreciation as she devoured nearly half the plate in under a minute. Witnessing someone else's misery wouldn't earn her any karma points, But sitting alone in a pub left her little else to do. She finished her last bite just as the jilted woman stormed away, and she wondered if she'd find another equally entertaining opportunity for drama. It was a slow night at the bar, leaving little else for her to watch. She returned her attention to the guy who had been dumped, or had been the dumpee. Sorry. How many is that? How many author flubs are we at now? She returned her attention to the guy who'd been the dumpee. He remained seated as if he'd not been bothered at all by the scene that had played out moments before. That piqued Sage's curiosity. She tried to be inconspicuous as she threw glances back in his direction. Maybe he'd been the dumper in that relationship. Maybe she'd imagined it all wrong. Her mind concocted a variety of scenarios as she spied on him while picking at her fries. Smearing them one by one in ketchup before plopping them into her mouth, she invented a new persona for the strange man across the bar. He was a secret agent, and the woman who'd left him was his informant. He was reasonably attractive, and the suit he was wearing only added to the appeal. Probably more middle management than secret agent, but he could be undercover. Julie came by and set down a new beer in front of Sage. You looking to swoop in now that he's single? Have I been staring that hard? Wipe the drool off your chin, honey. Oh, sorry, I was zoned out. Really? She half lied. But as she glanced once more at the guy across the bar, their eyes connected. The bluest of blue. His eyes reminded her of a dream she'd had, with the blue magic creature trying to kill her. Shit! Sage ducked, turning her head away. Whatever you say, Julie said, with the air of disbelief, and she turned to make the rounds at the tables, refilling their waters and clearing away plates. Sage hadn't been interested in him in that way, but Julie's insinuation made her feel guilty of grave robbing. She resigned herself to keeping her head down and studying the exercise rotation that Devon had given her. Not exactly the kind of riveting entertainment she'd normally go for, but safer than locking eyes with the guy who suddenly sent chills down her spine with little more than a look. I couldn't help but notice you checking me out. She could have sworn he was across the room only a moment before, but his voice sounded as if he were right on top of her, cocky and arrogant with just enough amusement to send every alarm bell ringing in her head. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Sage lifted her eyes, shocked to see him up close and personal. She hadn't even heard him walk up. From this new vantage point, he was more than reasonably attractive and had the deadly combo of dark hair and blue eyes that was her personal kryptonite. Words refused to move past her lips, though she desperately wanted to explain she hadn't been ogling him. He flashed a sideways grin, revealing impressively white teeth that looked dangerously sharp. He was everything her mother would have warned her to stay away from, and here he was trying to chat her up. Meanwhile, all she could do was stare. Those eyes, there was something different about them, the color of pure blue. She'd have sworn they were contacts. No normal person had eye colors that rich. And she could... Damn it! All right. All she could think of was the dream she'd had. The blue creature had been her enemy. It had tried to push her towards death. Can I sit, or are you expecting someone? He asked. She nodded like an idiot and immediately regretted the speed at which she'd said, sure. He was kind of good looking, but in a way that screamed bad boy at the same time as it silenced the rational part of her brain that recognized the danger. I don't normally do this, he said, and slid into the bench next to her. I don't ever, she started to reply without thinking or having a clue how to finish the sentence. I don't believe that. You probably have guys lining up. No wonder you're hiding here in the back. Sick of the attention, am I right? Damn. Good looks, gorgeous eyes, and a silver tongue, too. He had lady killer written all over him. So what's your deal? She stumbled over her own tongue, trying to sound cool, but realizing too late that she might have veered into bitchy. You saw my friend leave, huh? His smile didn't falter for a minute. She had a bad week, and I just couldn't console her, poor thing. Didn't mean to pry. Sorry, she just looked... Sage really hadn't paid much attention to the girl who had left. Had she been angry? Had she been sad? Or was she just walking away? She let words hang in the air until the stranger picked up the thread and ran with it. It's okay. I know girl code. You all stick up for one another. I admire that. How was he so quick on the draw? He had an answer for everything. No one was that good a flirt. Yeah, she feigned a laugh. Girl code. Her stomach somersaulted at the flash of his sharp teeth. The element of danger excited her at the same time. So is this your normal bar? I've never been in here before, but I heard the food was good. He'd been on a roll up to that point. Had her on the hook, ready to reel her in. But his one mistake was tossing out a cheesy pickup line. That broke some of the spell that he'd had over her. Reworded from the usual come here often, but even as dense, even I can read. Even as dense as she could be when it came to guys, the message came through loud and clear. Player, womanizer, not worth her time. Try the sliders. Sage deflected his attempt at a pickup line. She appreciated that he'd come over to chat her up. It was definitely an ego boost, but she wasn't ready to deal with the drama men brought to the table. Maybe next time. I was planning on heading out tonight. Maybe you'd like to join me? He asked with a flirty waggle of his eyebrows. Moments ago, when she'd been under his spell, she might have said yes, but her brain had rebooted, and the reality was a definite no. Sage looked herself over. One more time. Sage looked herself over. She'd showered after the gym, but she was dressed in yoga pants and her Read, Learn, Survive tank top and sports bra. She was hardly dressed for an evening out. Maybe not tonight. Oh, come on. The night's only just begun. Don't tell me that you don't like to get out and party. Those brilliant blue eyes went well beyond gorgeous, and there was a sort of hypnotic power behind them. Something she could feel drawing her in, but at the same time, she recognized the connection enough to avoid being pulled under again. Damn, he was hot. She was stupid to say no, but then again, what the hell was he doing trying to pick her up? She could see him trying if she'd been at a club or dressed to impress, but in gym wear, cute and comfy as it was, hardly screamed, date me. Oh, I party. Feeling momentarily self-conscious about her appearance, Sage jumped to defend herself. But girl code. His smile faltered for the first time since he'd sauntered over to her. He narrowed his eyes in confusion. You're batting for the other team? She should have said yes. She could have said yes. It might have been a lie, but it would have ended her painfully awkward struggle to speak to the way too handsome guy trying his hardest to go out with her. No, I just meant I have to be up to girl code to party, girl standards and all. So how about we swing by your place and I'll wait while you get ready? Creeper alert? She grabbed her beer and chugged it down, more to give herself time to formulate an appropriate response than because of thirst. It might as well have been water for all the effect it had on her. Normally, alcohol was liquid courage, but she was now 2 beers in and felt nothing, which only made the situation that much harder to deal with. His eyes left her face for a moment and widened as he looked down to the empty beer bottle. No, to her wrist. What an unusual tattoo. That she could easily respond to. She really needed to invest in a leather cuff like the one Mark wore to hide his damn birthmark. It was all people could talk about these days, but at least it provided her with a sobering distraction from his insistence that they go out. It's not a tattoo. It's gorgeous. Can I take a closer look? She sighed and held her wrist out. He bent his head to take a closer look, but thankfully did not reach a hand out towards her. It's really not a tattoo? I've never seen such beautiful artistry. His tone screamed lie. She saw clear as day in those icy eyes he'd been trying to hypnotize her. Marcy had had that same look too. Something about her birthmark was affecting the people around her. Ever since her mother's death, anytime someone asked to look at it, they acted as if they were seeing the mark of the beast or something equally damning. What the hell was so special about it? And for that matter, why didn't she know? Nope, call it a birthmark for lack of a better term, she responded mechanically. Having had this conversation so many times, she might as well put it on a business card to hand out to everyone she met. Might save her time in the long run. He leaned in closer and whispered in her ear, Well, that makes you truly special. Chills ran down the length of her spine, and goosebumps erupted all over her body. You'd be the first to say that. Growing up, most people just called me a freak. Children don't appreciate uniqueness. And you're definitely not a child. God, could she be more awkward? The moment the words left her lips, she felt the heat rising to her cheeks. This had to end before she before she shoved her foot all the way into her mouth. No, I'm definitely not. And on that note, I should probably call it a night. She tried to excuse herself, knocking her knee painfully into the table as she scrambled to get to her feet. You sure I can't convince you to come out with me this evening? How about we just exchange numbers and try for another night? She replied hastily. The conversation had turned weird, and alarm bells had begun to ring in her head. She needed an escape, fast. As if by magic, his eyes became even icier blue, a noticeable contrast against the paleness of his skin and his dark hair. She felt something like an invisible presence in her mind trying to persuade her, but the voice could not be heard over her own intuition screaming no. If you're sure, he reached into a pocket and pulled out a business card. Here's my number. She accepted it and quickly slipped it into her bag without even looking at it. I'll call you. Don't I get your number? His request took her aback, halting her attempt at an escape. Sure. Her heart raced, adrenaline pumping hard as she tore off the corner of the paper Devin had given tore off a corner of the paper Devin had given her and scrawled out her name and cell number. Here, she said mechanically as she handed it over and realized how stupid it sounded. He folded it neatly and placed it in his shirt pocket after taking a quick glance at it. I will, Sage. Hearing her name roll off his tongue had her nearly tripping over her own feet as she stepped away. If her mind had been working properly, she might have said goodbye, but as she ignored courtesy and bolted towards the bar, she slapped down a $20 bill and waved to Julie. See you tomorrow. Sage felt his eyes on her as she walked away and prayed she'd make it home before anything else happened to her. The day had gone completely sideways, a roller coaster ride of harrowing ups and downs that had left Sage uncertain which direction was which. She really couldn't make heads or tails of any of it. All she knew was that she needed to return to the normalcy of her home and maybe get a little sleep. Things always made sense after a good night of rest. So there's chapter 7. For those of you who have read it, don't spoil who the mystery man is. We will get to more of him shortly. But he is a character that is going to be around for quite a long time, and he is one of my favorites, and I won't say the name. So, did everybody enjoy that chapter? Let's see what's going on in the comments here. Let's see. We've got one asking, what book is this? This is A Weapon of Magical Destruction, book 1 in the Agents of A.S.S.E.T series. It's available in print, hardbound, and ebook from anywhere that you buy books. So definitely check it out if it's been interesting to you during our read. You can also check out chapters 1 through 6 on my YouTube channel. And this obviously is chapter 7 will be posted there as well. Let's see. Magical gibberish. There's a lot of magical gibberish going on right now. Hi, Regine. How you doing today? YouTube wouldn't let me comment. Oh, no. Why isn't YouTube behaving, Rebecca? That's not good. But at least you were able to find us on Facebook today. So yay for that. And that's one of the reasons I'm glad to be able to stream to both at the same time so that I don't have to worry about reposting a video later. It's already there and easy, hopefully, for people to find. There's Joe with the answer, A Weapon of Magical Destruction. And does anybody remember what A.S.S.E.T stands for? Can anybody tell me in the comments? I'll give it a second here. Destruction. That's right. He gets you tongue-tied. Definitely. Did we do a count of how many author flubs I had today? I don't know what's wrong with me. Some days I just can't seem to read. Like the words are there, but they just won't come out. So anybody with the answer on what A.S.S.E.T stands for? Give it a few more seconds here. Oh, so I did a good job reading. Thanks, Rebecca. I need that little confidence boost today. All right, so A.S.S.E.T stands for the Anonymous Supernatural Security and Elimination Task Force. Now, in the first chapter of the book, they do have it worded differently because the face of A.S.S.E.T is supposed to be something that is hiding the magic. So they changed the wording around a little bit. But that's what the actual acronym stands for. And on the book cover, I don't know if you can tell, it's actually written out in the background of the image. I thought it was really cool that the cover artist who did this really nailed that and got that whole secretive element in there. So it was really cool. No counts for today. So does that mean that I flubbed so much you couldn't count them? And Joe got the right answer there. Anonymous Supernatural Security and Elimination Task Force. Which is funny because one of my original ideas for it, I wanted it to have an acronym kind of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I remember in one of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes when they were trying to tell you what S.H.I.E.L.D. stood for, somebody else just said like a snarky comment. They were really trying super hard to make the acronym work. And that is literally what I did when I was creating this series. I wanted the acronym to work. So I kept putting together all different combinations of words to try and make the acronym work as a word and have it actually mean something. So yeah, that one took me a while, longer than it probably should have. That's okay, Joe. You still get credit. You got the right answer. So who's ready to hear about the winner of our contest? Anybody? Have I built up the suspense enough? I'm so glad to see that we've got a lot of people who are watching today. Anonymous was tripping. That's a word I have to slowly spell out too. Whenever I'm typing, I'm like, like I really have to sound it out because I will misspell it every time. There's a lot of words that I misspell religiously. Like I can never spell them right the first time around. And I've just gotten used to the fact that I know I'm going to spell it wrong. And thank God for Google searching and for dictionaries and for word catching most of my misspellings. Honestly, this stumbling added to the ambience. Oh, thank you. And Rebecca says, me, let me know. Okay. All right. Time to announce our winner. So I had some really good suggestions and I ran this for 2 weeks because I wanted to see if there was any extras that could have been added in. I wanted to give everybody enough time because I know not everybody can catch the show while it's live. And that's one of the reasons replay is so nice. So out of the suggestions I got, there were 2 that I thought were really, really good that we can apply, we can use and see how they work. So there's going to be 2 winners today, but we're going to run the contests at slightly different times. So drum roll. Our winner or winners of the contest are Rebecca Jonesy and Joe Compton. So Rebecca's idea of getting people to watch and then having those people tag whoever brought them is great because that creates the accountability and it shows the linking between who's bringing people on. So I really like that because it builds that sense of community. So I definitely want to go with that. Now Joe's idea to do a trivia contest with questions about what's already been read is really good. And specifically because when I had wrote this book initially, I had a bunch of beta readers. And when I did the beta reading, I didn't just send out the whole book to my beta readers and ask them to review it. I sent it out in sections. And I did so because I wanted the villain to be a secret all the way until the end. So every time I sent a question out to my beta readers with a section, the end of it was always, who do you think the villain is? So we're going to run Joe's idea on that premise. After I have introduced you to every character in this book series, in this book, then we will start using his contest idea of seeing who thinks the villain is who. And obviously the one who picks the villain will be our winner. But that's going to be run later because we have not been introduced to everybody yet in this book. So we'll run his later, but Joe still gets credit for the win on that. So Joe, please send me a PM with your address and I will send you out a set of lovely bookmarks for that. And Rebecca, you as well, send me a PM with your address and you will get a set of bookmarks. And then I will continue talking with you about how and when we're going to run the Bring a Friend contest. So that said, congratulations, you two. What do we have here? I'm embarrassed to admit this. This is the first time I've seen you aside from spilling ink. Ha! I hate the algorithms, but that's okay. At least you found us. So now that you know I'm doing this every single Sunday, until the book is through. And then once that's done, we'll debate whether or not we're going to start a different book or maybe continue in this series. It's going to be up to you guys. I really want your feedback and input on that. So congratulations again to Rebecca and Joe. You guys had some awesome ideas. And thank you, everybody, for listening in again and joining me for story time. Next week, we're going to read chapter 8. And we're getting close to meeting everybody. So Joe's contest will run soon-ish. But pay attention to everybody that you're introduced to. And be thinking about who's the villain. Because that's going to be Joe's contest. Yay, Rebecca! Congratulations. So yes, we'll be talking, Rebecca, later, and definitely send me your address, and I will get those wonderful, awesome bookmarks. These are so cool. These are just absolutely my favorite. I love these. That just the way they pick up the light is so cool, and they are like super sturdy. All right, so that's it for this week, guys. Thank you again so much for hanging out. And I hope you guys have a really good week. I know things have been stressful lately, just in general for everyone. So I'm sending out lots of hugs, virtual hugs. Just try and relax this week. Try and take it easy. Try and find something to make yourself smile. And we'll be back next week. All right.